Right, hi guys. It's me speaking to the four walls again today, and this is the second cohort. We had a good time in cohort one, and what I'm going to do here is take you through unit 10, and then tell you a little about units 11 and 12, and that is to do with applied ethics. So let's go and have a look at unit 10. And thank you very much for your reflective essays, some really, really good ones. And yeah, I think for the most part, you got most of what we were looking for. And I have commented on all your papers, and I've sent those back to you. Let's have a look at unit 10. And I'm going to share the screen here, and it'll be up on your page. Great. And I want you just please to watch that clip, and it's really informative, and it introduces it for you nicely. And also I want you to get involved, please, seeing that we've only got 2 more units left by unit 10. And the question that I've posed here is, having watched and reflected on the movie WALL-E recently, we witnessed environmental destruction. Now, a lot of you didn't get that. A lot of you didn't point out that the reason for the state that the earth was in was because of the environmental destruction. So we witnessed environmental destruction on a mass scale caused by consumerism, materialism, and greed. And a number of you noted that one of the values suggested in the movie was that of environmental stewardship. And you saw basically WALL-E doing that. In your first reading in this unit, under the section entitled Saving People and the Environment, Glenn makes particular mention of the motto of the Friends of the Earth being think globally, act locally. So I want you just to really think out of the box here, and how do you believe we can best do that from your perspective? And what do you believe is the right thing to do from a global and environmental ethics perspective and standpoint? Again, this is not for marks, although it will be in units 11 and 12, but we'll discuss more of that later. But as always, think out of the box and interact openly here. So let's have a look at global ethics and what that is all about. And let's go into your notes, which you would have been already. But for those of you who just want a refresher and want some insight from me, let's have a look here and see what we can come up with. And while it's busy loading, units 11 and 12 are really going to be exciting, and it really calls for your interaction on a large scale. And yeah, you really need to be doing that. And because it is going to be for marks, and yeah, your interaction is very, very important. What you'll see happening as well is that there are going to be 3 sectors, the 3 disciplines. It'll going to be Christian ministry, and that, as you'll see in unit 11 and 12, you'll see Glenn and my, our normal material we put up. Then you'll have a psychology page, which Geraldine will get up and give me the information that she wants to have put up there. And then Peter Clutty will put up the sociology. I'll put it up for him, but it'll be all his material. So Christian ministry will be the first one, and that will be as per normal, as you've gotten used to. And then the other 2 will be for the psychology and sociology or community development students accordingly. So please interact in those, and whatever discipline you're in, I think feel welcome to go into the other pages. Also delve into what Glenn and I have put together, because that also help you. You've done it for 10 weeks, so there's no reason why you can't do it also for units 11 and 12. And also your spots, which I think is imperative to all of us. And I've just spoken to Ruan at Doc Sadeo about that in cohort 1, is your personal formation and your self-care, irrespective of whether you're going to be a pastor or work for an NGO or be a community development operative on the ground, or even a psychologist, a Christian psychologist. It all pertains to the same thing. So make sure that you watch that particular clip with Rob and I. Rob and I were both pastors, and we know, I think, what we're speaking about in that perspective. Right, here we go. So, Unit 10. Great pick there of the old polar bear. And so, great quote here, cities in a globalizing world. Globalization is not a new phenomenon. However, what is new is the speed, the scale, the scope, and the complexity of global connections today. And as an introduction, we're going to have a look at economics and conflict, and also environment and general issues. And you would have noted Hosea 4 verses 1 to 3. The Lord has a charge to bring against you who live in the land. There is no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. There's only cursing, lying, and murder, stealing, and adultery. Sound like the 21st century to you? They break all bounds, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Because of this, the land dries up, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts of the field, the birds in the sky, and the fish in the sea are swept away. It's almost like Hosea is living today in the 21st century. Comparing oranges to oranges. The Western Cape in South Africa and California in the USA both produce oranges. And oranges sold for R2 in South Africa and for $2 in the USA. Now, if we imagine exporting our SA oranges to USA and USA oranges to SA and assume that the cost is the same both ways, then we only have the effect of the exchange rate. Let us work on the exchange rate of R8 to the dollar. And if you think about it, in the fruit industry, we really only get sort of grade B, whatever it is. So Cape orange would cost a Californian 10 cents, or American cents. A Californian orange would cost a Cape Townian 20 Rand. The two oranges are identical. Why? Simply because of global economics. Should Americans pay so little and South Africans pay so much for the exact same thing? I don't know. What is your opinion there? Many ethical issues now play out on the global stage, such as economics, conflict, politics, and the environment. There are many issues around economic ethics, such as poverty, hunger, fair trade, land, aid, social welfare, debt, consumerism, development, international trade, international lending. These debates also revolve around the ethics that are embodied in economic systems, such as capitalism, socialism, and communism. And often closely related are the problems associated with conflict, war over land or resources, terrorism, just war, military spending and the justification of torture, and nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. As in most ethical issues, there is a complex relationship between economics, politics, and conflict, in which each one affects the other. The 1900 to 2000 has been a century. The century has been a century of war and death as well, and one of progress, which is the ordinary person longing for peace. And a great quote here by Bertrand Russell: war does not determine who is right, only who is left. Phenomenal. A couple of books for you to consider. Great ethical books: Christian Ethics by Arthur Holmes and Commonwealth, Economics for a Crowded Planet. Great books. And there's a great slide here. The government budgets, education versus military spending. Look how much gets spent on education and how much on military spending. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And that's only in the year 2009. So I'm jumping up here. I'm just battling to look at that number there. Isn't that amazing? Forcibly uprooted by conflict and persecution at the end of 2008. You'll be able to carry on through these. So let's have a look at environment and general issues. That looks a little like Wall-E you had to go through. You see, that's what we were looking for, is that environmental destruction. That's exactly what he was going through. Consumerism, carelessness, complete disregard to God's creation, to the environment. It's just an absolute mess. Right, the issue of environmental ethics has been steadily moving onto the center of the global stage as the understanding of ecology has grown. The growth of the population and technology is in the process of creating large, complex problems for resources and the planet. Environmental ethics raise issues of pollution, degradation of the environment, loss of biodiversity, depletion of natural resources, both renewable and non-renewable, food shortages, and loss of beauty. There are a number of issues that are difficult to categorize, including the migration and displacement of large numbers of people, which creates large refugee populations and humanitarian crises. For a large part of the 20th century, development was seen as positive and good, but as the planet reached the 21st century, many people have come to question the value of continued and uncontrolled development, which has resulted in the search for sustainable development and even a search for downsizing and simplicity. This was quoted in the Time magazine: "Don't blow it, good planets are hard to find." A great song by Cat Stevens, "In the Children Play." So very good for you to have a look at that and go through those notes. Let me have a look at environmental ethics. And the question of environmental ethics has become critically important as Christians have been slow to respond to the ethical challenges. And why is this so? And we engage with this question and more during these two lectures. And lecture 2 takes us into the understanding and the parallels that are drawn between the movie Wall-E and what we think and we see today. So again, we look at Ken Saro-Wiwa. Says the environment is man's first right. Without a safe environment, man cannot exist to claim other rights, be they political, social, or economic. So what we're going to do, the normal thing is we're going to analyze, we're going to identify. So let's analyze, then identify, and consider, and then decide on what our action is going to be. 50% of the world's population live in cities. So, as part of our analytical process, the question of environmental ethics has become critically important, and Christians have been slow to respond to the challenges. Christians have been blamed for the environmental crisis because it is argued that they believe God gave them dominion over the earth, and I'm afraid many do abuse it. The state of the planet does reveal some reason for alarm. There's dwindling natural resources, there's pollution and waste production, there's habitat destruction, there's deforestation, there's loss of biodiversity, there's climate change, there's desertification, there's erosion, there's urbanization, there are alien species that are introduced. And we're beginning to understand how complex the web of life is and how finely and delicately balanced the world really is when we look at it from an ecological perspective. And this means we need to understand the world and the delicate balance that we're all part of and understand our impact on that world. Dennis Gabor, in his book Inventing the Future, says, till now man has been up against nature. From now on he'll be up against his own nature, as we see the greed and the materialism and the consumerism, again, from the movie Wall-E. And a great clip there, thin blue line, which I'm sure you've gone through. The world's oil reserves could be exhausted by 2014. Then what's going to happen? Unless we're going to be flying around in spaceships. What do you think? Right, let's identify. So what principles, purposes, and personhood can we use? Well, we know that God created the earth as an expression of his creativity, ingenuity, heart and mind, and love for beauty and goodness. God created us, created human beings in his image, and gave us permission to use, not abuse, the earth's resources. And instead he said, be stewards of the earth. Human beings should understand their role as responsible stewards of a world which they do not own, because why? It all belongs to God. Human beings have a responsibility to God, one another, the earth itself, and to all life on earth, as well as the future generations. When faced with difficult ethical choices, Christians do need to place the needs of humans above the environment, but only after exhausting all other options, not using money as a criteria and taking into account the long-term view, not simply the present. Caring, stewardship, and protecting fragile beauty are vital values. And I also wanted to see that come out of your essays, which I'm afraid I didn't. David Orr says, when we heal the earth, we actually heal ourselves. Sorry, I'm really battling with this mouse. I've gone through that. Piercing comments of thin blue line. And again, go through all of those. Let's go into lecture 3. We're really doing a whistle-stop tour here. And again, I want you to get really excited about your applied ethics coming up. I'm really excited, going to be doing the contact class in Christian ministry, and that really is going to be a good time for me. And we're going to be doing things such as looking at leadership, looking at personal formation as a Christian leader, looking at self-care. And I think very often what we do as leaders is that we think that we've been called by God to serve, and that means that we forsake our own self-care, we forsake our personal formation, and we just do, and we don't take care of ourselves. And I think very often we forget the need for spiritual disciplines, the need for simplicity. And even if you are in a psychology or sociology or community development major, I would suggest that you really read the reading in the Christian ministry sector on Life at the Center, and by Richard Foster. And it'd really be an eye-opener for you, as it was for Ruan in Cohort 1. So as this opens, we get into the third lecture, and look at that. Look at that. Looks like the N1 in Cape Town. So look at that versus the Lord God took the man and put him in the garden, made him to work it and take care of it. Environmental stewardship. Right, let's consider. What changes to our theology and our thinking, our longings and our lifestyles do we need to make as responsible Christians in a delicately and precariously balanced world? What is our relationship to the earth and nature? What are our ethical responsibilities to the present generation and future generations? How well do you understand nature and natural processes? Do you have a good understanding of your impact on your own impact on the natural world and on resources? Christians should be at the forefront of conservation and not leave it to the secular or new age environmental movement, the tree huggers, as we like to call them. Christians should have a deep connection with nature because they understand the world. So as they have been created by God, they profess, by the God they profess to love. Psalm 24 verses 1 to 2 says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters, and he created us to take care of it. Look at this. Americans discard 10,500 plastic bottles every 15 seconds. That is 60 million plastic bottles every 24 hours. I mean, that is crazy. A third of the world's population is at war. Look at that number. It's huge. And here we stand in amaze. Not amazement. We stand in amaze and we have to decide, what are we going to be doing? How should you live your life in relation to the environment, both as a child of God and a steward of creation? Because each day we face seemingly small decisions which affect our environment. Our actions will either be determined by understanding or the lack thereof. It is the combined individual actions of millions of people which are altering the natural world we live in. You see, it's a short-term thing. It's a short-term mindset of individuals, corporates, and governments which are damaging creation in ways that cannot be reversed. So how are our choices affecting the planet? Positively or negatively? And it's good for you to think about that. Lauren Wilkerson says, we live in present, shaped by the past, and we're shaping the future. It's nevertheless now that we make choices that change our world. I want you to ponder over that. How are you affecting the future? How are you shaping the future? I want you to go through those on your own, talking about the mass extinctions, the sixth extinction. Very, very good. A lot of work has gone into that. Just making to drive this mouse. How's that? Most people die each year from suicide. Then all the world's armed conflicts. That's another point to ponder. Why would anyone want to commit suicide? Perhaps it's because of the environment. There's no just to go through all that, if you could, at your leisure. Right, let's have a look at how we act now. To know is to do. Make sure you know, make sure you act. And again, the motto of the Friends of the Earth, think globally, act locally. G.K. Chesterton writes, the Christian ideal has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found difficult and left untried. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at spirituality and nature. In Christian spirituality, recognizes that God is the author of creation as well as the power which holds the world together. So how does that play out in what we're discussing and engaging with in this unit? And here we delve into understanding this in our last lecture today. And again, I really want you to get involved in that discussion forum, please. I just want to know, now that you've gone through this unit, and also having watched Wall-E, how that perhaps changes your thinking, perhaps makes you think twice about, or deeper perhaps, into the primary and secondary ethical values and issues that are at play within the world today and within creation and environment. And perhaps what you need to be doing and what you think that we should be doing as a group of people, as Christians, within this whole issue and the situation and circumstance we find ourselves in the current moment. How does that play out from a church perspective? How does that play out as a Christian psychologist? How does that play out in community development? And also in the ambit of sociology. It's worth thinking about deeply, and perhaps just making a note of what your response is versus the word even. What does God have to say about that? We've just read a couple of passages in that regard, but specifically from the book of Genesis, that we are meant to be stewards of the earth. Spirituality and nature. Let's have a look at this. Let's just go down to the one with the quote. Oh gosh. Bear with me. Okay. I'm going to go through this one so we can get the quote at the end. Okay, so the contemporary Western world has an ambitious relationship with nature. Many are both fascinated by nature, and many are afraid of nature. Christians also find themselves confused about how they should relate to nature, particularly since naturalistic science has come to dominate. Nature is the expression of God's creativity, and it is the first book that God wrote to human beings. Only later did God cause his revelation to be recorded. Nature or creation remains a key aspect of our relationship with God. We meet God in the world and the Word, and we need to attend to both. Whether it is the exploration of the universe, the earth, or the design of our own bodies and cells, all study of nature is a journey into the mind of God. The scriptures, particularly the Psalms, frequently lead us into worship and awe of God through the contemplation of creation in order to wonder. Just been putting up a couple of devotions on my website about Psalm 139. Perhaps what you do, as a matter of course, go and read Psalm 139, verses 23 to 24, which speaks about us and our intricacy of creation. Many, if not most Christians, acknowledge that they felt closest to God when in nature, whether through beauty or awe, such as in a storm. Henry Thoreau says heaven is under our feet as well as over our heads. Isn't that awesome? So spirituality. Let's just go on to the other so we can have the quote at the end of that. Christian spirituality recognizes that in a mysterious way, God is the author of creation as well as the power which holds the world together. Human beings are charged by God to care for, to steward the natural world, and to recognize that we form part of the community of creation. If Christians view themselves as separate from nature and in a struggle with nature, or that nature is there simply to meet their wants, they will destroy it. Again, our favorite movie, Wall-E. We need to repair our relationship with nature. When we were alienated from God, ourselves and others, we were also alienated from nature. Fundamental to redemption of human beings is the redemption of the whole of creation in the rule of God and healing the alienation of all relationships. Our spiritual formation and growth into fulfilling the image of God means that we develop the same love for nature as God's care and love for nature. Without a Christ-centered, redeemed relationship with the natural world, we will find that our spirituality will not grow to the fullness God has intended. Again, G.K. Chesterton, from his book Orthodoxy, says the main point of Christianity was this: that nature is not our mother. Nature is our sister. There's the Berg, one of my favorite places, the Drakensberg. Isn't that lovely? Look at that. Job, chapter 1, chapter 12, verses 7 to 10, rather, says, but ask the animals, and they will teach you. The birds of the air, and they will tell you. Ask the plants of the earth, and they will teach you. And the fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of every human being. Psalm 19, verses 1 to 2. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. Romans 8, 22 to 23. We know that the whole creation has been growing in labor pains until now. Not only the creation, but we ourselves. We are the first fruits of the Spirit growing inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. Great song by John Denver. I don't know if you remember it. Just a phenomenal song. And now in the content class, what we would do is we'd have a conversation and a discussion. And it's good for you perhaps to discuss over that forum as you answer that question and just talk into what we've learned today and in this particular unit. Right, I hope you had a lot of fun there, and I hope you had a lot of fun within that particular unit. We sure did, putting it together for you. And just briefly as we close, units 11 and 12 again are applied ethics. There is no exam. There were a couple of questions asked by email, whether there was an exam. There is no exam, but you will be marked on your annotated case study. And how that works is that there will be a discussion forum, and all three disciplines, that's psychology, sociology, and Christian ministry, will be sharing in that forum, and you all must. There's no ifs or buts or maybes. You will get involved if you want to get the marks. If you don't want to get the marks, don't get involved. But obviously you want to get the marks. A lot of you are doing really well, and I'm sure a lot of you probably maybe even hinging closely on an A. And you would want to get as many marks within that annotated case study, within that forum ambit as possible. So you must interact there. You must speak your mind, think out of the box. There's no rule that you have to, any specific rule, but it's just that you have to show us that you understand what you've learned and how you're going to apply that to your respective discipline, and how that will play out going forward, whether it be in Christian ministry, as a Christian psychologist, or a sociologist, community development operative. And that's about it. And I would ask you to read that reading, Life at the Center by Richard Foster, irrespective of what discipline you're in. I would suggest you do if you are psychology and sociology. You might not want to, but it really would be of benefit to you, as has been a benefit to you all these past 10 weeks. So yeah, 12 units, not 14. So you finished 2 weeks early, and you all said, yay. And yeah, we're going to have a good time. So we'll see on the flip side. I think when you go into the units tomorrow, hopefully the little video clip with Rob Stegman and I talking about self-care and personal formation from a ministry perspective. If it's not up tomorrow, I'm just waiting for the guys just to edit it and then to send it back to me so I can put it up for you. Then please check again later during the day, or failing that on Thursday. It is a must-see. You've got two people who've been in the ministry, who've been serving the Lord for many years, pastoring churches, talk about their own personal formation within the ambit of that particular area of concern. And it also will be the same for you in psychology and sociology. So have a lot of fun, and look forward to seeing you guys getting involved in that annotated case study. Have a great week.